Greetings. I was reminded the other day of a story that my brother and I, a long time ago in a land far away, we used to live together, and I remember that every Saturday morning he and I would start on a summer day with a cup of coffee on the back porch and start talking about all the things that needed to be done that day. And eventually, after a couple cups of coffee, I would say to him that I just needed to get started and to start knocking off some of the things on my list. And I would leave and I'd go do that. And sometimes a couple hours later, I'd come back and my brother would still be sitting on the porch. And I'd say, David, what's going on here? And he would share with me that he was still wrestling with how big the list was and how overwhelming it was to get it done. And that made me think about the fact that there's a lot of folks that seem to be challenged with this idea of analysis paralysis, if you will. And that is, they're so stuck on how big it is that it seems to prevent them from taking the first step. And I think the way to do that for me is to simply start breaking down whatever the big process is into as many small bite-sized pieces as you need to break it down to, and so that you're not looking at the task as this monumental whole. You're looking at the task as, what's the very next small piece of it that I can do to move me to the next piece of it? I sometimes challenge, there's this challenge between analysis and action. Sometimes the other part of that is sometimes we get so concerned about making sure that we have all the information that we need to make sure that everything is absolutely perfect before we get started. And the reality is that nothing's ever going to be perfect before we get started. We're never going to have all of the information that we could have. We're never going to have all of the resources that we could have. Eventually, we need to take action based on what we have and in our ability to use it, understanding that regardless of where that takes us, we'll be able to make the necessary changes to move us to the direction that we need to go if it leads us someplace that's not perfect for us. The challenge for us is knowing isn't the same as doing, and sometimes having the resources isn't the same as the willingness to use them, and sometimes analyzing something isn't the same as taking the action in order to accomplish it. So my thought for you is, and you and I have probably both been part of many organizations that believe if they've talked about it long enough, they've actually done it. Well, you and I both know that's not true. So map out a plan of action, divide that big project into as many small chunks as you can, figure out what information and what resources you need to take the next step, and then take it. And then from there, that'll lead you to the next step. I hope that this helps you in breaking down your journey into bite-sized pieces. And wherever you're at on the journey, I like to say, look down at your feet, because that means you're right where you're supposed to be. Until next time, take care and be well.